Hello and welcome. I'm Doc Stoxiadis of The Better Part. The world we know today is the result of a series of upheavals that started 100 years ago. Stay tuned to learn how it all began, because The Better Part starts now.
Welcome to The Better Part, a program that encompasses a diverse spectrum of topics important to our community, which we hope will both inform and entertain you. We invite you to sit back and enjoy the program.
As we record the show today, in March 2014, we are only a few months away from the centennial anniversary of the outbreak of World War I. In the studio today, we have Reno Di Bono, a historian who has a deep understanding of what happened next. Welcome to the show, Reno.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Now, for all practical purposes, there is nobody living today who remembers World War I. So maybe you can tell us, what was that war like?
Well, World War I was the first mass war. 70 million soldiers with 10 million or so dead in those years. And being a massive war, then that means that the entire society is going to be involved. So you have industry. Germany industrializes in the 19th century, catches up with Great Britain. France is industrialized, so you have equipment that is mass-produced, like the U-boat, for instance, and can kill. That's one, massive war. Secondly, it involves the civilians producing it at home. Thirdly, it involves the entire world, since these British, French, German, Europeans had colonies. So the entire world was massively involved. And I don't have a map here, but perhaps you can put it on the show later to show what contributions were made by these colonies. Okay, furthermore, my fourth point, is that this war was so massive that if you lost, you had to find a scapegoat. You could not accept who was to blame. As you know, the Germans blamed the communists and the Jews.
Yes.
And the war had no middle ground, no way to compromise. Either you win or you are destroyed. In the wars of European history, that's not the case. There were deals made, and you would lose a section of territory, like Alsace-Lorraine. But in this war, you are going to be killed on the field. There's not going to be anyone standing in the end. So being a massive war, then it leads to the creation of new isms, i.e. communism.
Yes.
Came out of there at this point. This war benefits the communists, for instance, because they're workers. And industrialization requires workers, and war requires products. And so the workers have an advantage in a war. There's a lot of work.
Yes.
So the Communist Party is one, communism. Fascism comes out of this war. And of course, Nazism. The isms that would lead to World War II are born in World War I. Also, World War I normalized brutality. Genocide, for instance, in Armenia, the Turks killing all the Armenians, the massive killing of the gas and et cetera. And then the wars that succeed that in our century and in the 20th century are unbelievably brutal.
Well, yeah, let's talk a little bit about what lasting effects that kind of a war did produce. You already mentioned the creation of some of the isms.
Yeah.
And the idea of, quote, total war.
Total war.
Yes.
Okay. There's the liberation of the colonies. And here you have an ongoing problem now, even now, that the European, in Africa, for instance, the Europeans were able to create boundaries that did not reflect tribal values. So in the Sudan
Yes.
or in Ethiopia, in many African countries, they have these little wars going on where these people were simply set that way. In the Middle East, you have, when the war ends, this is Kuwait and this is Iraq. Well, what about the ethnic values and ethnic factors? No regard. So the Middle East problem today is a result of World War I. Absolutely.
Yes, the partition of Palestine.
Everything, yeah. The problem of Eastern Europe, even Ukraine, is part directly caused in World War I. And I will give you a map to show all these ethnic entities, all these languages. Well, there's Serbian, Croatian, Romance languages, Turkish Muslims, all in this polyglot of culture in what was the Austro-Hungarian Empire, what was Germany, what was partly in France, in Central Europe and Eastern Europe. So that's another one. So the war is a massive war leading to complete destruction. The thing that's really interesting about it, like the American Civil War, is that the people that started this war had an illusion that they'd be home by Christmas. Quick war.
Yes.
And, it lasted, 4 or 5 years.
Yes, yes.
And no one ever thought, and they couldn't get out of it.
I do remember the phrase, home before the leaves fall.
That's right. And then, if you look at the empires, decadent, just Austro-Hungarian Empire, just brutally oppressing people of different cultures and different nationalities within their boundaries. The German Empire, same thing. The Russian Empire, the Tsar, oh my gosh. I mean, talk about incompetence. So there's three right there. Am I missing one? Well, the British did not change much after this, but what happened to those empires as a result of this war? That whole way of life was gone.
Well, true. Especially with respect to the Russians, most of the war Russia was still under a Tsar for most of the war.
Yeah.
And but then there was, of course, major changes.
Major changes. The Austro-Hungarian Empire and the German Empire. The Kaiser was never hung as a war criminal. He was simply ended up in Holland as a farmer. He lived long enough to see World War II. He must have thought that was pretty good.
Oh,
that the Germans would rebound, and come back.
Yeah. So what lessons have world leaders learned out of this, modern world leaders?
Well, there's one that's really interesting, and that is the Barbara Tuchman's book, The Guns of August.
Yes.
And in the Cuban Missile Crisis, John F. Kennedy made a statement that he wished, and he ordered, I believe, that every commander of every American ship would have a copy of that book on board, so they would not blunder us into this war with Russia as they did in 1914. They completely blundered their way into war. Terrible statesmanship, diplomacy. Well, that's getting into the causes of the war, but I think I've covered the effects of World War I. This is actually World War II. Yes. In continuation.
Well, yeah,
continuation. So World War I is really the big one.
Yeah, but
so what caused this war? That's what you're asking.
This war, yes.
Okay, I think there's 4 general ideas. One is the status of European politics.
Yes.
2 would be the arms race. 3, nationalism. And 4, colonialism. I believe that would be 4 general categories. The first one is the bizarre one, the one that really, really gets me.
All right, let's have a description of the politics of Europe, 1914.
Okay, who are the players? Well, what shall I start with? There's Great Britain.
Yes.
Great Britain. The sun never sets on the British Empire.
Definitely a great country at that time.
Unbelievable. How could a 100,000-man army and these islands control 300 million people in India?
Yes.
Unbelievable. I've been to the British Museum. They have everything there. They collected everything. Great Britain. Then there's France. Never forget it, Alsace-Lorraine. Never say the word. Never speak it. But remember it. We will get them back. Oh, gee. I mean, that's something that's just, when I first started reading history, I said, how could they have so much hatred? Well, there's the French woman who said, when I was a girl, the Boche came and they killed my father.
Yes.
When I was a woman, the Boche came and killed my husband. This is regarding all these wars they had. And finally, in 1940, she said, the Boche, the Germans, came, killed my son. You can imagine the kind of feelings they have towards Germany. So that's the French had no king, of course. They were more democratic than most, but they were not as democratic as we would like to think. It's different. Okay, so there's the two Western powers. Oh, Italy. Oh, disgraceful. Italy is interested in resurgence. They want property, and they're interested in what they can get, loot. You know, this is what they did. So they would join Germany at first.
Yes.
Because Germany seemed to be a winner, you know, in Austro-Hungarian Empire. And then what does Italy do when the chips are down? They switch sides.
Also in World War II.
In World War II, they switched sides wrongly. Yeah. Okay. So the Italian politics, vicious politics.
Yes.
Okay. Austro-Hungarian Empire. My God. His name was Franz Joseph, this old man who could care less about his nephew, the Archduke. He could care less. But he wants to destroy these people in his empire. The Austro-Hungarian Empire is hard to manage. You know, it's like you have Muslims, polyglot. Yeah, Muslims. You have Catholics. You've got all these different religious groups, especially ethnic groups.
Yes.
All throughout. There's two capitals, Budapest and Vienna. And the place is just archaic. It's just something of a world that doesn't exist anymore. Okay. Then you have Russia. Unbelievable. Talk about out of touch. The Tsar, Nicholas II, would rather have been a farmer or a parent. He had 4 girls and a son. He was not fit to be an emperor. Now, there were brilliant tyrants in history. There were, Peter the Great, for instance. But he was totally incapable of that. And he had the same problem. You know, the Russian Empire included Poland, which didn't exist, but it was part of it. And they had the same ethnic problems, and he used repression. The Russians, I shouldn't say this, I guess, but they're pretty good at that, of repression. You know, this is their history.
Yes.
Okay, and I'm not leaving out Germany. Oh, my God. Germany is, to me, one of the most fascinating countries. I visited it several times. I love their products. I drive one of their cars, and I am just impressed by the Germans. And their history, they were never a nation until 1871. And the leader was Otto von Bismarck.
Yes.
Brilliant statesman. And he united the kingdoms of Germany, which actually were warring with each other, and created what Hitler would call the Second Reich,
Yes.
the German Empire. And then the Kaiser William I, Wilhelm, dies, and this young guy comes in there, Wilhelm II. And boy, I mean, now I know why Charlie Chaplin wore the mustache. This man, his image is the perfect image for a cartoonist. He is a world buffoon. Wilhelm II. He is the grandson of Victoria, the Queen of England. They're all related.
Of course,
Yeah,
that
all related.
may have been part of the problem too. But now let's go on to the next point you brought up, the arms race.
Oh, the arms race. Well, that would have to do with Wilhelm too. Wilhelm, being a British, admired the British Navy.
Yes.
He was an honorary admiral in the British Navy, and at the celebration of the Queen Victoria 60th year, He was there. There's a photograph I have, and I have it with me, that shows Wilhelm and his cousin Nicholas sitting in the first two rows. Unbelievable. Wilhelm, the politics, the arms race is related to the politics. He wants to be England. He really does. He wants Germany to be a match for Great Britain. And they are Great Britain, let's face it. There's nothing like it.
Yes.
The magnificent navy. So he wrongly begins an aggressive habit or movement in arming Germany, and especially the Navy. He wants to rival the British. And the British Navy is the lifeline of that whole country.
Yes.
If you destroy it, they're dead.
Yes.
There was the British Admiralty had Bobby Fischer, I think his name was. He was the man that had the theory of 3-to-1 ratio. That if the British Navy has to remain ahead of everyone by a ratio of 3-to-1, because the British Navy is around the whole world,
Yes.
not just the English Channel. The German Navy doesn't have that problem. If it could be built, it could challenge the British Navy, take out some of the ships, and will weaken the whole empire. So they had this naval race. And in 1905, the British develop a battleship called the Dreadnought, the HMS Dreadnought, the first name. Speed is armor. Put all the guns on a platform. And I don't know the exact magnitude of those guns, but they're big. And you have turrets.
Yes.
It's interchangeable parts. The ship is going to go 23 knots. The guns are going to devastate anything. You could put a battleship in Santa Cruz and blow us to bits in Cupertino. So the British, when they developed that battleship, what are you going to do? It's like having the only nuclear missile with an atomic bomb in the world. They have an edge. And Germany has to do that. So you have this race. Now, the only thing that England can do is to have an abortive attack, like the Israelis would like to do to the Iranians. The British could now, like in 1910, it's not too late, we can attack the Germans at Bremen and destroy these ships. We're fine. And they could have done that, but they did not. So the arms race continues on, and it is a naval arms race, with Germany building these ships, the British having to stay 3 ahead, 3-to-1, 3-to-1. And the cost, unbelievable.
Yes, I can appreciate that, because we talked earlier that the German Navy really had a different mission than the British Navy, because there the British Navy is to preserve the sea lanes, and the German Navy's mission was to disrupt them.
That's right.
Exactly. So I can understand the arms race of the 3-to-1 ratio that you need. You know, U-boat can do a lot of damage.
The U-boat was the one that the Germans finally came up with. I think they were rather afraid to unleash this navy they had.
Yes.
And they never did. They had the U-boats, which were like little tin cans, but they were deadly. It was like a drone.
Yeah.
I compare it to a drone, you know.
Let's go on to the next topic, colonialism.
Okay.
So we have these colonial empires of the 19th century.
Yeah.
So where are we now?
Well,
right before World War II.
Well, those countries, as a result of World War I, are going to want their independence.
Yes.
And they will get it. And they will be stuck with all the problems of being an independent country. Rival factions, wars in the country, civil wars. And the Europeans, like the French, are always going back to Africa to intervene. And all of Africa, all of the Middle East is like that. So that the World War I is caused by the race for colonies. That is, Italy, Germany, and Japan are the 3 countries that in world history did not have colonies, because they weren't countries.
Yes.
Italy was not united. It was one province, like Pisa, Genoa, Naples, and they all had independent states, and they would war with each other. Germany had like 5 kingdoms. Bavaria, Saxony, I can't remember all the names. Japan was still living in the Dark Ages. So they missed the chance to colonize the world. So what happens is they want a piece of the action. And that will be one of the major causes of the war. The Japanese play it cool. They don't really fight. They take the German Empire, you see.
So let's talk about nationalism now.
Nationalism.
Yes.
What an ugly word. My country, right or wrong. Very dangerous. There's no reasoning here. The French, of course, I mentioned, had the notion of élan vital. That is, we must have a war. Every graduate of Saint-Cyr, the West Point of France, had to figure out how they would fight Germany. And the French passion was to attack them. And it will happen eventually. So that's their form of nationalism. Now that's different than the other Europeans in the East. Their nationalism is based on self-determination. We want freedom. We're tired of these Hungarians or these Austrians ruling us, or the Germans. So that's a problem we still have today, i.e. Poland. Poland was created in World War I. There was no Poland. Russia and Germany had that. It was just controlled. But there's a part of the world that is really has problems, and that would be the Balkan states.
Yes.
The Balkan states.
I've lived in one.
Yeah, I've never been there. But the word Balkanization,
Yes.
it means different ethnic groups living close to each other that have different values and different intents, and they're nationalistic. And in this case, it would be Serbia, who has a grievance against Austria-Hungary, because Austria-Hungary wants to take it. And that's what they do. As you know,
Yes.
Crimea, take
Yeah.
it. So the Serbians have a secret societies. They have terrorists like they do today, like we see today. And the Archduke Franz Ferdinand, a pretty decent man. He wants to go to Sarajevo in honor of a holiday, and he wants to pacify them and be friendly. And so he and his wife, Sophia, they get on a train and they go there on June the 28th, 1914. Unbelievable.
So let's hear about this incident now,
well,
because...
the backdrop of this is really interesting.
Okay, let's hear it.
Great Britain and Germany have a meeting in the North Sea.
Okay.
A big party. Churchill and von Tirpitz are going to talk about naval things. The Kaiser comes along. He is wearing the British Admiral's uniform. This is 1914.
Oh.
June, not June 28th, earlier.
Yes.
And they're drinking, there's the British fleet's there, the German fleet. They're like cousins, you know. As a matter of fact, if Gavril Princip had missed, I'm sure the world would have been different. That Germany would have been a friend of England, because that's how close they were. So when Gavrilo Princip kills the Archduke, the party ends. They end up singing songs to each other. And Nicky, he despises his cousin. He knows he's a weak man. And he says, if you mobilize, then we will mobilize and we will go to war. The Russians are so afraid of Serbia, little brother Ivan, that they mobilize their forces to fight the Austrians. The Germans mobilize their forces to protect their ally. The other ally is France. Wow, they come up. Now you have Europe ready for war on what is a local affair. They should have been handled locally. There was no UN, nothing like that. So this thing is allowed to cascade into World War I. Now the Germans, they have the von Schlieffen plan. And the Germans, I drive one of their cars, very nice, BMW. They think that way. Von Schlieffen plan calls for an attack on Der Tag, the day.
Yes.
August the 1st. Not August the 2nd, August the 1st. Everything is planned. They have 8 armies lined up across Europe with the 8th Army under von Kluck, was going to sweep in and conquer Paris. They call it a sledgehammer. Perfect plan. And they have the railroad. That's the key. You know, remember Hitler built the Autobahn for that same reason, interior lines. So on August the 1st, these notes go back and forth, and Germany won't back down. Russia won't back down. England is over here saying, England had an advantage with the fleet. They could be isolated, neutral, like we were.
Yes.
And England looked at this, oh, you can't do this. They knew, we can't do this. It's going to destroy the world. So on August the 1st, they gave the order, and the German armies moved. And they were not supposed to attack Belgium, the neutral country. The King of Belgium is related to the Kaiser. They're all cousins. And what do the Germans do? The heck with the fairness of neutrality. They went and attacked Belgium.
And so the war broke out at that point.
And what did England do? If you look at England and Belgium, if a foreign power conquers Belgium, like Hitler did in 1940, England is totally vulnerable, as they were to the B-1 rockets. So England looks at that and says, our North Sea, our whole supply line, they could starve us. So England declares war on Germany. But England had an army of 100,000 men. How could they possibly fight the Germans?
Well, exactly. Sounds very interesting. Thank you for coming this time, and we look forward to the next chapter in the history of the 20th century.
Glad to come back. It was fun.
So, the turbulent 20th century started with the events of 1914 and the wars that followed. What about the 21st? Is its defining history starting this year in 2014? It's an interesting time ahead, and we'll bring much of it to you here on The Better Part. Come back next week, and don't forget, you can always watch our past shows on YouTube. For The Better Part, I'm Doc Stoxiadis. Goodbye for now.